Yes, hi, and welcome to the Dark Knight Conspiracies, episode 74. May the Force be with us. So before I get into my op-ed of the title, we're not going to cover a lot of topics I'd like to cover today, but I'm going to go into one special one that's just all over the place. And it's going to tie into everything. Hopefully, just bear with me. So let's get into it. We saw the verdict yesterday in the highly national publicized case, and as expected, the left is flipping out beyond control. So we have our supposed president making his statement saying, well, you know, this is the system we have, and I guess we have to abide by it. Mind you, before he was president, when this incident happened, he called the kid a white supremacist. You know, mainstream media and everybody else, and a lot of people don't even know. The people who they are calling victims, originally, everybody thought these people were black. No, they weren't. They were white. So my question is, when whites shoot whites, how is that white supremacy? I don't know. My other question is, if Kyle Rittenhouse was black, my guess is he would have never been arrested. And my opinion, sorry, because let's go back. Well, first let me get to this. Calls for peaceful protests. Okay, that's comms, folks. What he's telling people is go out there and riot. My opinion. Why do I say that? Let's go back to a year when in Minnesota and Kenosha they were burning buildings down, breaking windows, looting, all that good stuff. Everybody on the mainstream, live videos, fires in the background. Well, these are peaceful protests. And I'm gonna break this down a lot more as we go through this. So as we saw last night, I think only Portland was the only place that rioted, but you know, the reason that went on a year ago versus like maybe now, maybe the National Guard being deployed prior to the verdict being read, maybe that was a deterrent, you think? And again, all these places, these protests, you know, the usual suspects: Philadelphia, Chicago, Portland, Los Angeles, New York. All Democratic run states, right? Go figure. Don't see any of this in, you know, didn't see it in Florida. Didn't see it in Texas. I don't know. I could be wrong. Stories could be out there. You getting the picture here? And our famous Joy Reid. And they are melting down. I mean, de Blasio put out his comments. This is all an injustice. Why this man was, you know, this is more, this isn't, I mean, it is about Kyle because they tried to make an example of him, but there's a bigger picture here. What they're trying to say, and again, Joy Reid, slave catchers and white citizenship. This was white privilege, why he was allowed to walk. Lately, we haven't seen any justice. I think we saw it yesterday. And I've got nothing for praise and thanks to the jury, because you had an MSNBC reporter get arrested for following the bus. Previous to that, you had somebody, which I don't know if the person, the judge knows who it was because he made the statement, but somebody had photographed these people. They were trying to intimidate the jury, and my hat goes off to them for not succumbing to the threats and violence, because these were not sequestered people. They knew what was going on. They knew the protest outside the court. They knew the consequences of their verdict. And all glory to God that they did the right thing, because this was so cut and clear based on the video. This kid was being chased. He was being attacked. The one witness, the star witness for the prosecution, admitted he pointed the gun first. Well, I may have said this before, but I'm going to say it again. If you haven't seen Roadhouse, one of my favorite actors, Sam Elliott, he made the comment, when somebody points a gun in your face, you got two choices. You can die or you can kill the son of a bitch. And I'm not advocating any of that, but that is what's called self-defense. And the Bible allows this, even though it says, thou shalt not kill. There is a thing, you cannot sit by and watch your family be attacked. You are the priest of the house. You are the man of the house. You have an obligation as your wife to protect your family and your property. We already saw the travesty in St. Louis, what happened to those people. And this is where I'm going with this. I believe we're starting to see the puppet strings cut. Because in my opinion, I believe the heads of the snake have been cut off. And the reason I say this is because if they were still in so much power, we would have saw a different verdict. And I'm going to cut to again, a lot of truth in movies, and I'll get to this in the end. But again, one of my favorite movies, Sean Connery, one of my favorite actors, and Kevin Costner. Yellowstone, love it, love it, love it. The Untouchables. So the scenario is the 1930s. Al Capone, and he's being tried. And Kevin Costner comes across a man who he escorts from the court and finds a list of the jury members in his pocket with dollar amounts. So he realizes the jury's been bought off. So he requests chambers with the judge to remove the jury, and the judge doesn't want to do it. And they have this black book, supposedly. And Kevin Costner asks for everybody to leave the judge's chambers except for him and the judge. And they come out, and the judge tells the bailiff, there's another trial going on in the other room. I want you to take that jury and bring it in to this courtroom, and take this jury and bring it into that courtroom. And Al Capone goes nuts, Robert De Niro. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, regrettably, there is no protection for these people that sit on juries. And, you know, when you got a family to protect and you're being threatened, you can't judge these people for not doing the right thing, because in their mind they're doing the right thing for their family. And this is a tough position to be put in. So my hat's off to the jury. I think we're starting to see justice turning around. The marker will be next week when Mr. MyPillow goes before the Supreme Court. We'll see how that goes. My prediction, again, I like to be, how do you want to say, positive about the outcome, but I don't know. You might get to put in a discount code of 09 to get your Giza sheets and My Pillows and My Topper and all that. But I'm not optimistic, I guess is the word I was looking for. But we'll see. I still have faith, but I do think this is a turning point. And what I think why they're flipping out is because of the FFs being planned. We all know that their goal is to, use Antifa and BLM to riot and this and that. What they're really targeting here is you don't have a right to self-defense. And I think that played a part in why there were no massive riots last night, because now these people are thinking, do I want to go out there and get shot? Because the second time around, I don't think the people are going to stand for this, in my opinion. I don't think the people are going to allow their cities to be burned down. I can't speak for Portland because, quite frankly, I don't think there's anybody left there to defend it, but that's why I think they're flipping out. Remember, they have to take the guns away. And the first step, if he would have been, and he would have appealed, there were enough circumstances with this idiot. And by the way, a high profile case like this, and the Attorney General or the DA didn't prosecute, he sent his underlings to prosecute. That tells you right there they weren't confident in this. So my guess is they were trying to make an example of this kid to say, hey, if you go out there and you try and defend yourself and your property, you're not going to have a chance in our legal system. So I think they're losing power and they're panicking because, again, they're more afraid of us than they are of the Orange Man. And again, the reason I I'll state this. The reason I call him the Orange Man is I got to be careful about the words I use, or my channel will get shut down, and you know the drill, censorship, this and that. So everybody's celebrating yesterday. Well, let's talk about another dirtbag. Jerry Nadler. Now he's pissed off and he's calling for a federal review. And he's just, Bill de Blasio, all these people are putting out a miscarriage of justice, sets a dangerous precedent which justifies federal review. We cannot tolerate armed persons crossing state lines, fake. This is not 1940 Germany. We all have the right to go state to state. I understand there's, federal statutes about what you can and can't do crossing state lines, but looking for trouble while people engage in First Amendment protected protest. Remember this a year ago. Buildings were burning, looting. That's protected protest. This is what they're saying. This is why I think they're panicking. And this is why I think the strings have been cut. That they've lost their protection, if you want to say. They're not going to hide. They're not hiding anymore. They're out in plain view telling you. What did Fauci say the other day? We don't have the right to decide what's best for us in terms of the whole of the country. We're not smart enough to make our own health decisions. There's the line is when the government tells you the truth, it's the truth they want you to believe. Let that sink in. They'll tell you what the truth is. You don't have the knowledge. You're too dumb to know what the truth is and what's best for you. Starting to get the picture here? They're not hiding it anymore, people. So, I've had some discussions about this, and a lot of people, well, this is dead and buried. He's free. Okay. No, he's free on a state crime. Again, they're starting to show you the overreach. What he's doing is telling to DOJ, go get him on a federal charge. Just because you got acquitted from a state charge doesn't mean you can't get nailed for a federal charge. Now, we'll see where this plays out. Quite frankly, being this such a national case, I don't think anything's going to come out of this. But just the threat of this. And by the way, ask the January 6 people how their Fed crimes are going. And we're going to go down memory lane because a lot of people have short-term memory. Anybody remember Ruby Ridge, 1992? The Randy Weaver story, where his wife was shot between the eyes holding their child. And you can read all this, by the way, former Green Beret. They were religious fundamentalists, we've heard that word before, who distrusted the government. Heard that before. All they wanted to do was live a secluded life off the grid. Can't have that in this country. Supposedly he had threatened Ronald Reagan, but no charges were filed. But, he had ties to the Aryan Nation. He denied the claim. Now here's where I'm going to bring up. ATF claimed he was selling illegal sawed-off shotguns. Confronted him. Listen to this. Offered him a chance to become an informant. He refused, and he was indicted. See the pattern? Have you seen this before? Did we see this in Michigan? Did we see this on January 6th with these informants? You see the pattern? This ain't new, folks. This has been going on for a while. So, catch up on some history here. Anybody remember Lavoy Finicum? During the whole Bundy thing? Back in 2014, 2013, around that area. This was a total setup. They were going to a meeting when they took over this wildlife preserve place that was federal property. Again, I'm not condoning what they did. But a meeting was organized, and they were heading to this meeting, and lo and behold, they hit a blockade, which they call a traffic stop. You can see the video. There are links here. And Lavoy got out of his car and was just gunned down in cold blood. No firearm in his hand, nothing. They were surrendering. See the pattern? So, if I was Kyle Rittenhouse, I don't think I'm out of the woods yet. So, off topic, I'm going to bring up Bill Maher. Why am I bringing him up? I've watched this man for 30 years. I thought he was funny. He makes no secret he's a liberal Democrat. And look, he may have been involved in some bad stuff, but he always had his pulse, for being a comedian, he understood politics. He had his pulse on the people. And it wasn't until the Orange Man got elected that he just went rogue. And I would call it controlled opposition, because he just went off the charts with attacking. And I never saw that. All those years I watched him. And then all of a sudden, after our new POTUS, Biden, gets into office, all of a sudden he's gone back to his old way. He's actually calling them out on a lot of stuff. And I don't watch him anymore because I couldn't stand it during the Orange Man era. I mean, it was so off the charts. I was like, what happened to this man? And it goes back to my theory, the puppet strings have been cut. I don't think he's controlled opposition anymore. And look, I'm not going to get into this, replace body doubles, CGI graphics or none. I literally think, he may have to pay for his crimes, whatever they may be. I don't know. I've seen a lot of stuff I can't vet. But, maybe he made a deal and he's no longer being controlled. This leads to this is why I think there's panic in D.C. And he's calling it out like it is. He's back to his old self. So what happened? I don't know. Again, I don't have to agree with somebody to respect them. You know, that's one of the gifts we're given. You know, it's just like the whole trial thing, you know. A lot of people don't agree with, you know, if you bring up how Jesus talked about turning to the other cheek and, you know, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and we're not here to judge. We shouldn't judge people. And I do subscribe to that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you understand, you got your left and your right hand, and the left hand is heaven and the right hand is hell. If you understand the gains of the left hand versus the downside of the right hand, and you know, God told us, pray for our enemies, love thy neighbor regardless. I can see the argument about, well, you know, when we're on a jury, we're judging people. Well, that may be true, but, you know, God did give us laws. He didn't necessarily give us the jury system. Man created that, but it goes back to my philosophy of, look, I'm all for life imprisonment. I don't agree with capital punishment, even though I do think there's cases for it. And the reason I don't wholeheartedly agree with it is because we're not perfect. We get things wrong. The person that doesn't get things wrong is God, because he knows the truth. And that's why you let him do the judging, and you pray for your enemies. I know a lot of people are going to have a hard time with that, because if you really understand what hell is about and what suffering is about, we all have suffered. We suffer on a daily basis. Multiply that 100 times. Think about an eternity of just suffering. And that's why I believe God gives us a gift. We each have one that is special. I believe most people would disagree with me, but I agree mine was always a sense of humor. And there's an old line, if you don't think God has a sense of humor, all you got to do is tell him your plans. But the healing power of laughter, I do believe in that. Because whenever I get down, maybe depressed, distraught, I always watch comedy. I'll watch The Honeymooners, I'll watch Sanford and Son, I'll watch Seinfeld. I will watch things that make me laugh. Because I do believe there are some healing purposes to that, mentally. So real quick, I just want to bring up a couple of points. There's some things I'll say about the Orange Man. I do think he did a lot of good. One thing I wholeheartedly believe, when he brought up about the 25th Amendment, we're starting to see that play out, because we're starting to see tension between the president and the vice president. One thing I will say about the Orange Man, everything he has said has come true. So keep that in mind. Dark winter, I think we're coming into it. And I'm just going to make a prediction, because we're seeing, not that we're seeing it, but if you do your research, my prediction is going to be, we're going to see some live events. Whether it's news, press conferences, announcements, sporting events. I think we're going to see some people drop. There's footage out there of soccer players over in Europe. There's incidents of a hockey player collapsing on the ice. There's going to be, just like the UFOs, with all the technology we got, there's going to be some undeniable events that are going to happen live, which they're going to have a hard time explaining. My opinion. So now let's get into May the Force Be With Us. There's truth in movies. And I'm just going to focus on the first 3 Star Wars. Even though the following 3 were a prelude to what happened in the first 3. This was all about good versus evil. And one thing we saw at the end of this was, like anything else, and like the Bible tells us, God wins in the end. There is a force for good, and there is a force for evil. And if you apply that thinking when you're watching the movies, you start to see the bigger picture here. Even though it's futuristic, excuse me. But the one scene I want to focus on is at the end when Vader's watching his son, as evil as Vader was, is watching his son being tortured and killed. No matter how evil you can be, no matter how evil you were, no matter how great your sins were, you can be forgiven at the end. And I'll leave it with the line of Luke telling his father, after the Sith basically killed him, "Father, I have to save you. Don't worry, my son, you already have." That is the sign. If you repent and confess, you can still be saved. Not necessarily guaranteed. That's your personal relationship between you and the man upstairs. And then they end the movie where he sees his father standing with Yoda and Ben Kenobi. And I'll leave you with those thoughts. And until next time, stay safe, stay strong, be vigilant, be prepared, keep your faith. And may the Force be with you. God bless you all. Zebra 3, take us home.